3 feet of water flooded my home and office last September during Hurricane Helene. Drywall, kitchen, floors, everything was destroyed. I had to gut the entire house down to the studs. The damage was so widespread that I couldn't even find a place to stay nearby. For 6 months, I lived in temporary housing nearly 2 hours away, and I had to float most of the costs myself because insurance was slow and FEMA was no help. If I didn't have an emergency fund, I might still be displaced today. In this episode, we're talking about what an emergency fund really is, how to build one, where to keep it, and whether you even need one at all.
This is the LawyerFI Podcast, equipping lawyers and other high-income professionals to reach financial independence. Adam B. Cordover is a Florida-based collaborative family law attorney. He is not a financial advisor, accountant, or tax attorney. This podcast does not provide legal, financial, or tax advice, and is for information and entertainment purposes only.
Welcome to the LawyerFI Podcast. I'm Adam B. Cordover, a Florida-based collaborative divorce attorney on my journey towards financial independence. Last year, disaster struck. In September 2024, Hurricane Helene hit St. Petersburg, Florida. More than 2 feet of floodwater swept into my home and office. Pretty much everything in my house was lost. Floors, gone. Kitchen, gone. Furniture, electronics, legal files, personal keepsakes, all destroyed. The drywall had to be ripped out, the house was gutted down to the studs, and this wasn't just where I lived, it's where I worked. 95% of the time I worked out of the house. My livelihood and law firm were linked to it. And I wasn't alone. Tens of thousands of people lost their home during Helene. The storm just didn't discriminate. Now you'd think that's where insurance and FEMA would step in, but if you've ever gone through something like this, you know the truth. Insurance moves slowly, and FEMA was a dead end. In the meantime, I had to pay demo crews, secure materials, and begin repairs, all out of pocket. And some vendors didn't take credit cards. Making it worse, there was no affordable place to stay anywhere. I ended up in Lakeland, about 1 to 2 hours away, depending on traffic. And I was there for 6 months, commuting back and forth while trying to run a law firm, help my clients, and piece my life back together. Now, besides the love and support from my family, friends, and staff at my firm during these challenging times, here's what made the difference. I had an emergency fund. That fund didn't solve every problem. It didn't bring my home back as fast as I wanted it to, but it gave me time. It gave me breathing room. It allowed me to make decisions quickly when I needed to. I didn't have to sell investments or make desperate choices, and I know many people who didn't have that cushion, some of whom are still displaced to this very day, nearly 1 year later. An emergency fund won't stop life from happening, but it gives you the power to rebuild when seemingly everything you've built is suddenly gone. So let's take a step back. What is an emergency fund exactly? How much should you have? And what counts as a true emergency? Let's define it clearly. An emergency fund is money set aside specifically to handle unknown urgent expenses, the kind of things that would otherwise throw your entire financial life off course. This isn't money for vacations, it's not for car upgrades or planned home renovations, and it's definitely not for that new iPhone that just came out. An emergency fund is for the stuff you didn't see coming, a job loss, a medical crisis, a busted air conditioning in the middle of August, or yes, a natural disaster that floods your house and affects your very ability to live and work. You'll hear different numbers and formulas thrown around, and we'll get into that in the next segment. But at its core, the emergency fund is your financial shock absorber. It's what keeps you from derailing your long-term goals just because something short-term went sideways. And here's the thing. Emergency funds aren't rare. They're inevitable. The timing and form may be unpredictable, but life has a way of testing our stability. If you've never needed an emergency fund, that doesn't make you lucky. It probably just means your time hasn't come yet. Now, some people feel they don't need an emergency fund because they have credit cards or a high income or a well-funded investment portfolio. And we'll talk more about those perspectives later in the episode. But even if you have those tools at your disposal, an emergency fund offers something different, something I'd say uniquely valuable. It gives you liquidity without risk. It gives you confidence without the need to sell investments during a downturn or rack up debt under pressure. And maybe most important, it gives you time. Time to make decisions without panic. Time to deal with hard things when they happen without compounding the stress with financial chaos. And even time to realize you have the need and ability to make decisions quickly. Now, I've heard some people describe an emergency fund as self-insurance, and I like that. Because you're not just covering your assets, you're buying peace of mind. So now that we know what an emergency fund is and why it matters, the next logical question is, how much should you save? When you are also getting out of debt, financial personality Dave Ramsey suggests building an emergency fund of $1,000. That's his baby step number one. And the traditional rule of thumb otherwise is 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. That's not your full salary, just your core needs: rent or mortgage, groceries, insurance, utilities, transportation, and minimum debt payments. The idea is to give yourself a buffer so you can handle a job loss or a major surprise expense without going into debt. But for many lawyers and business owners, especially solo practitioners, 3 to 6 months or Ramsey's suggested amount might not feel like enough. If your income is variable or it takes a while to ramp up new cases, you might even want to aim for 9 months or even a year of expenses. And if you're the only earner in your household, lean toward the higher end of that spectrum. Now, some folks skip the months of expenses idea entirely and focus on risk scenarios. In other words, what's your biggest possible out-of-pocket emergency? So, for example, if you've got a high deductible health plan, maybe that number is your deductible. Let's say $7,000. That would give you a clear, concrete goal to save in your emergency fund, at least to begin with. So, on the other hand, if you want to save a certain amount of months as a goal, but you're not sure how to calculate your expenses, tools like the Empower app can help you track spending. Or if you want a hands-on method, you could do what I did and fill out a family law financial affidavit, which we'll link in the show notes. It's a great template for listing all your expense categories. But as I mentioned in a prior episode, as the financial affidavit is linked with divorce and family law, please tell your spouse why you are filling it out, just so there aren't any misunderstandings or surprises. Whatever your goal emergency fund amount is, start with an amount, then build upon that to 1 month, 3 months, and beyond, or more than that. You can keep layers in different accounts for easy access and a bit of interest. So whether it's a few months of expenses or just enough to cover your biggest deductible, the goal is to pick a number that fits your life. So now that you've got a target number or amount of months in mind, let's talk about how to actually build that emergency fund, especially if you're starting from scratch or managing other financial priorities. One of the best strategies is to automate the process and pay yourself first. This is the route suggested by Ramit Sethi in I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Set up a recurring transfer from your checking account to a dedicated high-yield savings account or other account every payday. Treat it like any other bill you owe. Even if you start small, $50 a week or $500 a month, whatever you can manage, the important thing is to build the habit. Consistency is more powerful than size at the start. There's also the option to use roundup features in banking apps. Every time you make a purchase, the app rounds up and funnels the spare change or other amounts into your emergency fund. That can be a painless way to watch your savings grow, but you probably want to regularly contribute more than just this method. You can also direct any windfalls like tax refunds or bonuses straight into your emergency fund. Don't get trapped into lifestyle inflation. Just because you get some additional cash doesn't mean you have to spend it. These boosts can speed up your progress towards an emergency fund. And here's the key, just get started. Even a small, steady contribution is a win. Watching that fund grow is incredibly empowering. You're literally seeing your safety net form before your very eyes. All right, now that we've talked about building your emergency fund, let's figure out where to keep it. The main principle is liquidity. You want the money accessible quickly and easily. After all, it's for emergencies. But you probably also want to earn a bit of interest so inflation doesn't eat it away. A high-yield savings account is a popular choice. These accounts are typically FDIC insured and offer better rates than traditional checking accounts. You might see rates around 3.5 to 4.5%, at least as of the date that I'm recording this in September of 2025, and that helps your money keep pace with inflation. Another option is a money market account or money market fund. These can also offer competitive yields and easy access. Just be sure to know whether it's an FDIC insured account or an investment fund. You can also consider cash management accounts or cash plus accounts offered by brokerages such as Fidelity or Vanguard, which blend features of checking, savings, and investing, and currently offering relatively safe money market funds with interest rates similar to high-yield savings accounts. Just know they are not all insured, and also understand this isn't the place for stocks, crypto, or anything that can lose value quickly. Keep it in something safe and stable. Another option that some people choose is to build a short-term treasury bills or CD ladder. To do this, you purchase these investments every few months or once a year so that you are earning interest but are never too far away from being able to redeem the treasury bills or CDs. Just be aware that if you are in a true emergency and need the cash, you will be penalized if you need to redeem these instruments early. And so, while I think this may be a good safe method for your general savings and to build more of a cash position, I probably wouldn't recommend it for an emergency fund. And personally, I like to split things up between my personal and business life. And yes, I do have an emergency fund for my business. And I keep it in a high-yield money market account at a local credit union. For my personal emergency fund, I use a cash management account invested in a conservative money market fund with a big brokerage firm. That way, I have a mix of stability and convenience. But ultimately, the best place is somewhere that balances safety, a bit of growth, and easy access. You can absolutely mix and match these options to suit your needs. So far, we've talked about how to build and where to keep an emergency fund. But now let's tackle a question that might be on some of your minds. Do you even need one at all? There's a school of thought, and you'll hear this from some financial independents, retire early, or FIRE enthusiasts, that an emergency fund might not be strictly necessary if you have other resources to draw on. For example, some people prefer to rely on credit cards, lines of credit, borrowing from a 401k, or tapping into a taxable brokerage account. The logic is that you might not want to leave a large chunk of money accumulating less interest when it could be invested for a higher potential return. One of the well-known voices in this space, Karsten Jeske, known as Big Earn from the Early Retirement Now blog, argues that if you have substantial taxable investments, you might consider them your, quote, emergency fund. You can quickly sell investments if needed. The show notes, by the way, contain a link to one of Jeske's articles on this. Of course, there are trade-offs if you're going that route. Relying on credit or investments can mean selling assets during a down market or paying interest. Further, as I shockingly found out during my emergency, not everyone accepts credit cards. And for some people, having a dedicated emergency fund offers peace of mind that's worth more than a little extra yield. Now, one strong recommendation I have is not to rely on borrowing against your 401k or similar plan for an emergency fund, even if you have the capability to do so. There's only a limited amount of funds that you can put in this type of tax-protected account, and if you are truly a high earner, then you're probably maxing out your 401k contributions. So don't be tempted to take out funds from this account when you have other options, because doing so is a major opportunity cost for tax-free growth on your investments, which can quickly add up. In future episodes, we'll delve into 401ks as well as what Albert Einstein purportedly referred to as the magic of compound interest. But in the end, it's about your comfort level and overall financial picture. If you like the idea of traditional emergency funds, go for it. If you prefer a more flexible approach and have other assets to draw on, that's valid too. The key is to have a plan that lets you handle surprises without derailing your financial goals. So let's bring it all together. An emergency fund isn't just about money. It's about having options when life sideswipes you. For me, it meant being able to rebuild after a hurricane and to get back into my house before many others were able to do the same. For you, it might mean being able to take off during a health crisis, weather a downturn in the economy or your business, or just breathe easier knowing you've got a buffer. Start where you are. Start small if you have to, but just start. And if you've already built an emergency fund, I'd love to hear your story. Where do you think is the best place to keep it? Is there a general rule of thumb you follow? Please let me know in the comments. For now, please remember, financial independence isn't just a dream. Now, let's go achieve it. This episode of the LawyerFI Podcast is sponsored by Family Diplomacy, a collaborative law firm. If you are facing divorce in Florida and looking for a private, humane alternative to a courtroom battle such as collaborative divorce, give us a call at 813-443-0615 or visit us at familydiplomacy.com. We accept clients in every county in Florida, and we have offices by appointment in Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Sarasota. You are not alone. We can help.
This has been the LawyerFI Podcast. Visit our website and learn more at LawyerFI.com, including information about how to become a sponsor. Watch or listen to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere you get your podcasts from. You can also reach us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. LawyerFI is hosted by Adam B. Cordover and produced by Eric Sachs. Original music is by Jake Biller. Adam B. Cordover is a Florida-based collaborative family law attorney. He is not a financial advisor, accountant, or tax attorney. This podcast does not provide legal, financial, or tax advice, and is for information and entertainment purposes only.